Glad to have you back on TVC Breakfast, and we are looking at the face-off between the executive and the Senate, or you could call it a show of power, or whatever you like, but both of them somehow are not in agreement. And we have in the studio with us Fola Arthur Worry, the former Lagos State Solicitor General. Now, let's look at the Senate and, of course, somehow how it has carried out its activities so far. For example,
you mean from the beginning or in relation
to the 8th National Assembly Senate.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, summoning CGC, they asked the customs. What's the name?
Controller General.
Controller General. Yeah,
Controller
thank you.
General.
Hamid Ali, summoning him, but telling him he must wear uniform before he comes. So is it about the substance of whatever case the Senate is handling, or about show of force exerting authority that it is an independent body?
I must confess, I find that a bit puerile, the whole issue of, we're looking at the substance of the matter. I wouldn't think that the wearing of a uniform per se should create all this ruckus. But sometimes we tend to get distracted. So I find it difficult to classify why they are so insistent on that, sort of ceremonial, if you like, element of a hearing rather than the substance of it. But, that's a matter perhaps they need to be asked. Nobody has really asked them why, and I'm not in a position to. But whether it is within the Senate's powers of summoning, whether they do have the power to compel his appearance, whether that power to summon incorporates a power to determine how they dress is another issue. It's like if you said that the Minister of Health should come dressed as a doctor, or the Minister of Aviation as a pilot. It's all a bit silly in my view, and it distracts from the real issues.
And even that matter has been overtaken by other events. You now have the issue of Alain Dume, who has been suspended for 6 months.
Yeah.
According to the Senate, he has brought odium to the Senate by not investigating first the two issues involved here. First, the issue of the Range Rover that was imported, allegedly by the Senate President.
Yes.
And, of course, the issue of Dino Melaye and his degree or no degree, or certificate or no certificate.
I told you.
It's laughable, isn't it?
It is laughable. And I
now,
think
is it even in Alain Dume's place, first off, to investigate before bringing it to the floor?
Well, I must confess, I have no knowledge. I have not followed that element of, and those are not the matters I think contemplated by the establishment of a Senate by the Constitution. I think that they are beneath the dignity of such a body, and that they should sort of rearrange their priorities.
No, that's why I'm really concerned. When you say that, look, the Senate, you said it earlier, that the Senate is carrying out its constitutional duty.
Talked about that is in relation.
And the executive is doing its job constitutionally.
You said in relation to face-off. That's
okay,
different.
In relation to face-off.
These are domestic matters, which I think are beneath
where is the
our
place of the
consideration.
Constitution in all of this that is going on?
All of
do
what?
these lawyers,
Yes.
the senators, do
Yes.
they understand the Constitution in the first place? That is supposed to be the ground
No,
norm.
you have to be specific. In relation to what? Are you
In
classifying?
relation to, first of,
which particular
Alain
actions?
Dume,
Yes.
suspending Alain Dume, for example.
I'm not competent to talk on Alain Dume because they have very arcane internal disciplinary rules, which are not set out in clear terms and are not really matters for, if you like, legal discourse. Strictly.
And then you have the case of Ishe Sage, the Professor Ishe Sage, who has told them bluntly that it is not in their place that they are not constitutionally backed to actually summon him.
And the Attorney General of the Federation also said that, and that was why he didn't honor the invitation twice.
That they didn't have what? The power to...
The Senate didn't have the authority, constitutional authority to summon him. That was, he sent a representative, and they felt insulted.
I think that this is something that that I first came into, if you like, contact with in this summoning of state officials, right? When we were still under military rule and it was a partial, and I remember that in Lagos State we made it a tradition that to give the Constitution full authority. If you are summoned by the legislative house, you go there, principally because they are the appropriators and they have oversight.
Even if they don't have the constitutional backing?
Hold on. No, that's why. Who says they don't have the constitutional powers? Read what it says. In any matter over which they have legislative capacity, they can summon an official or any other person and can compel. So I think it is a bit, arrogant for any state official to say that he will not appear before the Senate, because they are the representative body. Indeed, they are the core of democracy, right?
So you would be on the same page
I would
with the
say
president.
that in principle, any appointee of the president or any official of government ought to appear before the Senate. Whether he can be compelled to answer certain questions is a totally different issue. But we must show respect for the primary bodies of democracy.
So in a case now where you have this tendency to disrespect the institution of the Senate, whether it is Hamid Ali or Lin Dume or
no,
whoever,
I don't. Hamid Ali is the
SG.
Well, he said he was
CGC, the Controller General of Customs, and of course the other people that have at one time or the other been summoned to come before the Senate. Buhari himself actually cautioned his nominees and said, look, you're causing some kind of bad blood and tension between the executive and the legislature.
So we must look at institutions and not individuals. And what I find amazing is that the very people who disregard institutions when they are in power run back to them when they lose power and their rights are threatened. So I do not look at personalities, I look at institutions. A country is only as strong as its institution.
Indeed.
And what you do as a government official appointed is you show that primary respect. When you get there, you can now engage on what the issues are. But to say that for the Attorney General, for an Attorney General, to say that he is not constitutionally bound, I think it's not a good message going forward. That's my view. And we have to make up our minds where we want to go in this country. The idea that people will just, quote and unquote, declare their own judgments and positions without regard to I don't think a lot of people actually read the Constitution deeply enough.
Is that where this whole thing stems from?
I think that we are very detail careless.
All right, let's turn to Foladele now to tell us what Nigerians are saying about this on the social media.
Fola.
Good morning, Ngozi. Good morning, Aziza. Good to see you. Good morning, Fola.
My dear, my namesake.
So, yes, indeed. So the drama continues, and let's find out what people are saying online. All right. First one here from Whistleblower, who says, Buhari should open up. Let him speak to Nigerians of his problems with Senate. We believe in him, not in Senate. We are the ones to decide. Tommy Boy says, anytime the Senate asserts its independence unapologetically, these Buhari worshippers will come on the timeline to cry, let's scrap the Senate. Omojua says, we need a referendum on whether we want to keep the Senate, and we need that referendum before the end of 2018. I'm going to come back to you on that. Fireproof says, and that was in reply to Omojua, he said, the only referendum that we need is the one to restructure the governance, not Senate. Stop putting the cart before the horse, Buhari man. Baba Goni Buka says, the Senate want to undermine the government of President Buhari by all means. Theophilus says, it's now Nigerians need General Muhammadu Buhari, not President Muhammadu Buhari, with what is happening in the Senate. Democracy is rubbish. Wow.
This is strong.
Looks like the president is caught between the devil and the deep blue
Yes,
sea
I don't
here.
even know which one to start with.
Whether to be a general or to be a president. Because it's been a struggle right before the elections. He tried to impress it on us that, look, I am a Democrat and that's what I will be throughout my tenure.
Yes, so someone says we need a referendum to, get rid of the Senate, and we need that before 2018.
No, but your constitution did not prescribe a referendum for the move. You see, a country that runs on wishful thinking, it's not going to make progress. Let us study you see, it isn't about the document. You can have any number of processes. It's the character of the systems that matter, not a referendum or whatever. What would that achieve? So you have a referendum, you do away with the Senate, you have maybe, instead of a bicameral, you have a unicameral. It'll still be the same old issues. It is not structure that is the problem. It is the workings and for me, the lack. I heard a senator speak the other day when the acting president vetoed a bill. And he just showed an absolute lack of understanding of the process, saying that the only way the executive could challenge a bill by the assembly was to go to court, which was a ridiculous proposition. So we need, as a people, to get more serious. I don't think we're applying ourselves enough to understand the mechanisms of these systems that we have inherited through the Constitution. And that's what's leading to the frustration of the people. So referendums, for me, are just tools. They are not answers.
So we had Ahmed Abbas yesterday, and I asked him if this is all perfectly normal. I mean, our presidency and our Senate just can't seem to agree. The drama just keeps on going, and everyone thinks, are these people leading us even serious? And I heard you say earlier that this is perfectly normal, and it happens, you know.
No, I said, not the details. Not the details.
Then that's why I brought it up.
But the assertion of independence by the legislature is basically a historical norm. I mean, before the Queen enters Parliament, she knocks because of some historical, you know, there's always been that tension between the executive and the legislature, particularly where, one, the legislature supposedly represents constituents, core constituents, whereas the executive looks at the bigger picture. So there's a push and pull of that. Then there is the issue of the legislature being the appropriator. They are the ones that sign bills into law. So you can see how long it's taken them to pass the budget. So that again leads to its tensions. You've seen all manner of, there are misconceptions as to roles. Nobody is clear whether it is the Senate that writes the budget or the executive that writes. Whether the Senate can change the budgetary allocations or vice versa. The Constitution is not clear on it, and the courts are yet to determine. So there's going to be, that should not worry people.
So now when you move away from the foundations of, look, the executive is there to implement the law. The legislature is there to make laws, and the judiciary is there to interpret.
To resolve disputes.
Now, when all the people who should be in government don't seem to understand these basic things.
Yeah, sometimes it can be trouble.
What is playing out is only a symptom of a deeper problem.
That's what I say, that for me...
All right, Fola, we'll have to let you go.
That's why I say, for me, you know, I think we're worrying about the wrong things. Yes, I think what we're seeing is symptomatic of just a lack of care and attention to detail. Let's see what this Constitution says. For instance, in the case of the EFCC, you know, people are getting all worked up, and I say, but the law is very clear. You know, that these are the processes that will apply. And if the Senate does not see the proper application of the law, it will act accordingly, and vice versa.
And it doesn't seem to you as some sort of power struggle, knowing that the Senate president is a member of the APC and the deputy is a member of the opposition.
I am not, if you like, I'm not privileged to know about all of that. What I look is outcome. I'm not interested. My father always told me, don't bother about a person's motives. Bother more about his judgment. So I'm not interested in all of that personal. What I want is the result. So far, yes, the Senate, to me, has probably a crisis of moral authority. Like all governments probably throughout Africa, we're yet to convince people that we truly are operating in the people's interest. So I think that is the primary issue, and all of these are just bits and pieces. But what I think we need to do as a people is to pay more attention. It's not just lawyers.
Okay, we'll come to that right after we come back from this break. Of course, on the dot of 8, will be time for the news update. Stay with us.
Glad to have you back on TVC Breakfast. Now we are looking at the war of attrition between the Senate and the executive of Nigeria, and we've had Fola Arthur Warre talking to us so far on this. And like you said, you're bothered on the result, the effect of the work they are doing so far. Yes. And of course, thank you very much for the analysis. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's time now to join Ndi for the news update.
Indeed, thank you, Azizat. The Nigerian Senate has amended the 2010 Electoral Act to allow for the use of electronic voting and devices for the conduct of the elections in the country. Former chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC, Abubakar Kyari, said the new law, when assented to by the president, will modernize Nigeria's electoral system. Among the amended portions of the law is the transmission of electoral results, which is now to be done electronically immediately after collation at the ward, the local government and state levels. Professionals in the field of procurement have raised concerns over what they call anomalies in the proposed amendment to the 2007 Public Procurement Act by the House of Representatives. The experts told journalists in Abuja that a planned mobilization fee of 50% will further bleed the economy, as well as encourage corruption and abandonment of projects, since defaulters only risk 2 years in jail. They want the House to conduct a public hearing on the issue. And the Defense Headquarters has confirmed comments made by the Minister of Defense that the leader of the Boko Haram group, Abubakar Shekau, is alive. Defense spokesman Major General John Enenche told a news conference that the Boko Haram leader was never killed by troops, contrary to what the military authorities had earlier said. General Enenche explained that Shekau had only hoodwinked the authorities into believing he had been killed in a military crackdown, and this has not been confirmed by any DNA test. Well, 4 out of the 20 suspected cases of cerebrospinal meningitis have been confirmed in Kano State. Commissioner for Health Kabiru Getso says the confirmed cases were recorded in 8 local government areas of the state. Getso also confirmed 2 cases of Lassa fever in Tudunwada local government area. He added that the government has since provided the sum of 19 million naira to combat the spread of the disease. And that's all on the news on TVC Breakfast. Discussions will continue in a moment with Azizat and Ngozi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right, you're welcome back. We're looking at the Senate presidency face-off or war of attrition, in your words. I mean, so many people have described this in so many,
struggle.
yes, power tussle and all whatnot. We have GT Ogunye right here in the studio with us right now. He's also a lawyer, and he'll be enlightening us on this. First off, our last guest, Fola Athawari, said that what is going on is a crisis of moral authority, or lack of respect for the Constitution or constitutional provisions and all of that. Situate all of this for us, if you can.
I agree. Thanks for having me, and good morning, Nigerians. I agree entirely with this submission. I only need to add that largely, and this is a general statement, because in this climate, political power is central to primitive accumulation of capital and corrupt enrichment, there cannot but be a virulent struggle, a war of attrition, as you call it, a stiff struggle, even bloody sometimes, to control the levers of power in order to, in turn, control the purse. It is not about high principles. It is not about the legislature protecting the legislative process from an invading executive arm. It's not about all those. It's not about the principle of separation of powers and checks and balances. It's not about all that we know in the books, all that the Constitution has written. Rather, it's about crudity of power and how to assess and use it. All the institutions of states are being practically grounded by a legislature that ordinarily should be a force major for peace, order, and good government. That's what the Constitution says the legislature should do. And because representation at that level is widespread, is national, you want to assume that they know what they're doing and that they have to work in the interest of the people. But largely it's not been so.
So, well, is it because they are somehow far away from their constituents, they are at the capital, and they think they have the power to, subject the executive to dance to their tunes, or about banding around their president, the Senate president now, talking about Bukola Saraki, who since the inception of the 8th Assembly, since he assumed the position of the leadership of that house, it's been one sort of problem or another for him in courts. And we have a latest one from the EFCC now accusing him of taking some funds. So is it about protecting the Senate president and coming together as one body against the alleged actions of the executive?
No. And this is very sad. Because we have people around here, I'm talking about this geographical space, Lagos and all that, who are in that assembly, who are in the Senate. And I don't know whether Nigerians pay attention to this. When Senator Ndume was being suspended and Deputy Senate President put it to vote, I strained my ears to hear that lone voice of dissent saying nay. It was dead silence, meaning that all of them agree with that travesty. And why is it a travesty? Ordinarily, legislators tell us that, under the Legislative Powers and the Legislative House's Powers and Privileges Act, anything they say there is protected. And so, Dino Melaye could say something egregious. I will beat you up and I will rape you here. And that passed. So, they throw that law at us. Anything we say here is protected. So, a man then raised a motion, a point of order. This is what we are hearing in the polity. Investigate it. And it was investigated. And for that, you send him out of the place. When the courts have said that you cannot serve as a, there's a provision for recall in the Constitution. You cannot send out a representative because you'll be violating the rights of his constituents who voted for him. The law is there.
Okay,
that
now,
Melaye, that Melaye was sent out of the House of Representatives.
And he went to court.
And went to court and he won. And it's just an irony that he was one of the reasons why. So it is not about Saraki, that's the point I'm making.
But then again, there are those who would say that, look, all of these people who are criticizing the Senate and the way it's been going on are just simply playing to the gallery. What if the situation, the picture were different, where you actually have an executive that just wants to, run over the legislature and they have to stand their ground at every instance?
No, ordinarily, you want the legislature to build the bulwark of democracy, defend democracy against a dictatorial executive presidency. That's not the situation here. This executive is even too laid back. Look, when a Senate becomes an instrument of blackmail, we won't do our job. We won't consider your whatever. This filibustering, it is nothing like filibustering because they are not considering a legislation. We will not do anything unless you do this. The executive is too laid back. Because if the executive were to exercise the full sumness of his powers,
within the ambits of the law, within the provision of the Constitution?
Of the law.
What, for example, would you have this executive do in the light of all the things that's been going on?
What I expect the executive to do is to stand his ground and say, this is what you've done. It is not right. They have an attorney general. Look, in the Second Republic, you had many cases being taken to court. In Lagos here, when Professor Yemi Oshibajo was the Attorney General, he was always in the Supreme Court challenging the federal government. That's how all those concessions you had on the federalist side in Lagos, and Otowari was here, all those concessions were won. So when you have that kind of anomaly, I expect the Attorney General to be in court. You can't do this. Judiciary, please come and settle this dispute. Can they do what they are doing?
The executive has already yielded by setting up a committee to look into the issue and mediate with the legislature.
He doesn't know what he's doing. With due respect, they don't know what they're doing. They need Why do you think that when a legislature becomes the underminer of the democratic process, Nigerians will look up to an executive to protect us from this kind of errant legislature? That's the point I'm making.
But if the executive does that, don't you think it's going to impede governance, and at the end of the day, people will be affected? Nigerians will be the ones affected.
Maybe these executives, they don't know how angry Nigerians are. Look, if President Buhari had done what he ought to do at the earliest of time, Nigerians are ready to march on that National Assembly, seal it up and take the key away.
What should he have done? Should he have insisted on his own candidate as Senate President, which some say is what is likely playing out now, because the Senate President, in the person of Bukola Saraki, is not exactly who the APC majority wanted in that position in the first place. And then, now you have a government that is, I mean, the APC is in government. It has a majority in the Senate and, of course, the lower house. And then you still have these issues. What exactly is at the root of this?
Ma'am, you're taking me back.
Maybe we should take a quick break.
Exactly. Before you say anything on that, let's quickly go for a short break and return in a moment. Stay with us. Does it seem to you that this could be what the Senate planned all along, what it wanted to get attention of the executive?
You don't engage in brinkmanship in governance. It's antithetical to the principles of good governance. You don't engage in gambit. It's not a game. It's not a circus show. You swore to an oath to do what is right by Nigerians. So you don't stonewall an executive arm of government in order to get concessions, particularly when those concessions have nothing to do with governance. You know, you are undergoing investigation, you want the executive to back off. You are undergoing trial, you want the executive to back off. Oh, you are being investigated, don't investigate us anymore. So it's like they're trying to get immunity by default. Oh, you enjoy immunity. They wanted to push immunity deal through. Nigeria said, no, you can't have immunity. How many immunities are we going to have? So now, practically, they want to immunize themselves from investigation. And that's not how you govern. They are in government also. So, I don't get it.
And that's why you want to ask the question, who owns this democracy? Like the late Sonny Okosun would ask, who owns Papa's land? Do Nigerians really own this democracy? And is this democracy at risk with what is going on? Or we will come out stronger than before we went in?
No. This is not nascent democracy mantra anymore. This is not 17 years on. You have a 17-year-old, you know, almost going to attain majority at the age of 21. So what we're talking about, it is not Nigerian people own this democracy. As a matter of fact, and I say this with a sense of responsibility, most of the democratic actors, for want of a better word, I would have called them civil actors, because we are talking about a civil government as distinct from a military government. Most of them who were old enough when the military was around didn't lift a finger to say that Nigeria needed democracy. As a matter of fact, they are reaping where they didn't sow. Some of them, medical doctors, were in the bank, running those banks aground. They didn't lift a finger for democracy in this country. And so the people of this country own this democratic process. And so they have to do everything to protect
exactly.
it. And so for me, because you raised a point about, political parties and all that,
yes.
I think that we are organizing a zero-party system, as we had in Uganda. These are not members of any political parties. These are power mongers.
So there's nothing like party supremacy or anything going on here.
They use the political party affiliation just to access political power. They have no allegiance to political parties. They have no ideological bearing. They have no fidelity to political party principles and lines. These are unruly people. Unruly in the sense that they are not going to stay in line with the position of their political party. So, can't you see what is going on? Your president is a member of your political party. Those who are fighting him are in the APC. Where is the political party?
So it seems that Nigeria's democracy is threatened, and of course, so far, Nigerians are doing nothing about it. How
Nigerians
should
are
they
doing a lot.
protect their democracy as you have posited?
Nigerians are doing a lot. We're talking citizen action. But people are saying that too much talk, let's have action. I think that we need to go back to, look, I give an example. The United States is supposed to be a beacon of democracy. Some feel passionately that their democracy is under threat now with Trump. And following his election, for the first time in the history of the United States, there were massive protests. Not my president. You then saw the political leadership, those who contested elections with him, trying to calm frayed nerves, telling them, oh, he's our president, we must respect this democratic process, and so on and so forth. So what I think that Nigerians should be doing is that we shouldn't assume that the days of protests are gone. We shouldn't assume that.
Or Nigerians are protest weary? Is that what is happening? I mean, you just mentioned this case of the U.S. Those protests did not change anything.
They did.
You think so? And you have a Donald Trump who's now has his family members in government in spite of the fact that he says they will not be paid.
It could have been worse. Because you talk about the psychology of a judge. Why do you think that those judges, apart from the law, because we're talking about the judicial neighborhood, why do you think we are so sensitive enough to strike down all his executive orders? So those protests did a lot. So, and that's why I'm saying that we could reinvent those. It is not, when you see the structure of government almost breaking down in the hands of those who are supposed to run government smoothly, the people as the fallback will have to do everything in their power to protect the democratic process.
All right, let's quickly relate this to what happened in the parliament in the United States as well, where, of course, you know, the Republican Party is in the executive, and then the leader, Paul Ryan, is also a Republican. But then President Donald Trump couldn't repeal Obamacare because some Republicans were against it. So don't you think the Senate is doing what it wants to do as well?
Let me look at the example. He said he wanted to repeal Obamacare. The Republicans for 8 years were saying that they wanted to repeal Obamacare, but they were insincere. They were dubious because they just didn't like Obama. And maybe because of his color, because it was different. They didn't like him. And so anything he did, they wanted to block. So when Obama was now removed from the picture, and they then had the earliest opportunity to repeal, their constituents were telling them, repeal and we'll vote you out. You know, unlike here, every vote that you cast is tracked. It is not a climb of A's and then you can't hold anybody personally responsible. So that's why the bulk and the pullback. So it's not, it has nothing to do with Trump. It has more to do with what Americans want right now.
Taking control of their democracy.
Affordable
healthcare.
And so they aren't going to allow any legislator to
play politics with it.
All right, let's take another break, and when we come back, we'll round off on this. Stay with us. You're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast. Our guest in the studio is GT Ogunye. You mentioned earlier about the seeming softening of Buhari in his, the way he's handled this particular crisis so far. Of course, he set up a committee to look at this face-off. And, another interesting aspect of it, he's picked ministers who have personal relationships with the lawmakers. Also, they've been co-opted just to make the peace. But do we need peace just for the sake of peace? Will this be good for democracy in the long run?
It's not good for democracy. I had expected the executive to stand his grounds, so to speak. When you propitiate and appease an arm of government that is exercising power for the wrong reasons and misusing power, you are going to create a problem. You're not going to have a dictatorship of the executive that people fear. You are going to have a dictatorship of the legislature, and neither is good in a democracy. So what we're going to have is that you then have an executive, a legislature that can hold Nigerians to ransom. There's the budget. We won't pass it unless you do this to us. So the negotiation of a deal will lead to unprincipled compromise. And what is the deal here? Oh, I've told you all this while, drop these charges. don't try me, don't investigate me, tell custom to back off. This. Is that what you want to negotiate? When you negotiate it that way and you give concessions, you are dead.
But then, what?
Nigerians don't need that kind of compromise. We need principled leadership. So what I expect the executive to do is to show leadership.
All right, by showing
and not kowtow to a legislature that is doing the wrong thing. That's my view.
All right, by showing leadership now, do you think two wrongs can make it right? If you recall, in 2014, President Goodluck Jonathan locked the gates of the National Assembly, and then you saw lawmakers scaling the fence. And then Nigerians criticized the president's action, criticized lawmakers for their rascality, so to speak. So what kind of authority now do you expect?
That was 2014. If the gate of the National Assembly is sealed this time around, Nigeria will demand for the key and say, go home. I'm telling you. So you can't just extrapolate and just oppose and say that, oh, it was. Nigerians are angry. Do your voice pop. Nigerians are very bitter.
Take action.
But are Nigerians not angry both at the executive and the legislature and even the judiciary? So where does that leave Nigerians and where does that leave this particular APC-led government?
Well, Nigerians have a right to be angry.
Yes.
Because we are talking about institution of state. But the anger varies. I'm saying that in the prevailing circumstances, Nigerians see a legislature that is impeding the will of governance. And, you know, and Nigerians are a little bit soft on the president because he's not enjoying the best of health now. And Nigerians can rationalize a lot. Oh, maybe his health and all that is concerned and all. So, but Nigerians can clearly see a defiant legislature. Last year, don't buy the jeeps, we'll buy it. There's nothing you can do. That's not the legislature we want to see. So Nigerians know where the anger should be directed.
So when the authority is even greater than the subject, this happens, and that's what we are seeing, so to speak now. But what role can the All Progressive Congress play? Because the leadership, well, the Senate President is a member of the APC, and the President is also a member of the APC. What role can APC play to make sure that this doesn't disintegrate any further?
I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't see APC play any role. The last time they did a straw poll, but Jabi Amila should be a candidate. This one, did their party, what did they do? Did they sanction anybody? The party is not in control of anything. I'm sorry to disappoint you. They can't play any role. I don't see them play any role. When I use the word, I spoke in a nuanced manner. When I talk about zero party, I was looking at Uganda. In Uganda, Oda Museveni, he didn't want political party to thrive. So everybody, as individual candidate, will go. So you don't have a party. Now, what I see is that we are practicing almost a zero-party system. They have allegiance to no party.
Every man for himself.
They have allegiance to themselves. And they have no allegiance to political parties. The day of the action group, when people could go to prison for a political party, days of UPN, the days, they are gone. These ones are political merchants.
So who will be the biggest
allegiance to political party lines?
GT Ogunye, who will be the biggest loser in all of this? Is it the Constitution? Is it the Nigerians? Is it our democracy? What is going to play out at the end of the day?
You're very apt. You very, in fact, you got it. Nigerians will be the losers. The democracy will be the loser, and constitutionalism will be thrown overboard. Some of the things they're doing, quite frankly, have no place in constitutionalism. And they know. You summon somebody to come. You are not. The Constitution says under Section 88, you can only conduct a hearing or investigation when you want to make a law or amend a law with a view to correcting defects in it, or when you want to cut waste, corruption, or and something like that, in respect of the money you've appropriated when it's being disbursed, when the money is being administered. But now, that has nothing to do with it, and then you call Sagi, come, because you criticize from outside. Come here.
Come and answer to us.
And
thank you very much.
Because you criticized us from inside,
we have to go
you're
now.
on suspension.
Thank you very much, GT Oguye, for your analysis on TVC Breakfast Show. We'll go on a short break now. Return in a moment. Stay with us.